Hey everybody, it's good to be here. Yeah, it's a strange time to be talking about stand-up comedy. It's a strange time to be doing stand-up comedy. I wish I was a painter or something, because then I could just I don't know. I feel like I don't need a lot of people around. Uh, I am going. This is my plan. Is I'm gonna show a video of me performing. I think it was a couple years ago at Lord Franzanian's Royal Olympia Vaudeville Spectacular in downtown Olympia. It's one of my favorite sets that I've done. It's also like, I also picked it because it's pretty clean. After that, I'm going to talk a little bit about I'll talk a little bit about like what it was like before, what I was doing, what happened when the pandemic stuff started, and then what it's like now and how I'm finding like creative outlets for me now. And then if anybody has any questions, man, I love talking about comedy. I love answering questions about comedy. So with that, I'm going to play this video. Washington, Sam Miller. I'm from Olympia, Washington. I'm 6'6", 350 pounds, and I've been clean and sober for 10 years. People ask me all the time, they're like, Sam, what was it like when you were drinking and doing drugs? And I just show them this tattoo. That tattoo says, let's dance. You want to know if you have a problem with drugs or alcohol, look at your belly. What does your tattoo say? Because my shit says, let's dance. Which is wild because I've never partaken in nor particularly enjoyed any dancing. I should have gotten a tattoo that's like, hey Scott, you think it's too late to tell that guy about that crystal? I didn't have that kind of money though. We had enough for 9 letters. I'm doing good. I've been sober 10 years. I was homeless when I got sober. I stayed homeless for a minute. But yeah, it's 10 years later. Me, my wife, and my mom, we just bought a house in Tumwater. My wife lives upstairs, but my mom lives downstairs. I don't know why I need to specify that. It'd be weird if I lived upstairs with my mom and my wife lived downstairs. I know that that's important. Do you know that? But it's crazy, man. I'm just like a really grateful dude, and like what being homeless means now is that I'm just really hard to buy gifts for. Like I have a roof and Netflix. Like I'm pretty good. All right, man. So my mom, she had to give me an experience, and she got me the coolest thing ever. She got me hang gliding lessons. I want to tell you guys something. Hang gliding is amazing. I fucking really want to tell you that, but I am too fat to hang glide. It's not a happy story about me hang gliding. It's a sad story about me being too fat to hang glide. It's crazy. So me and my mom, who went through hell, I mean, look at me and all the drugs I did, and I'm sober now, but I'm keeping track of how long I've been sober, so you know it was bad. We go to the hang gliding place. It's in the gorge, right? Have you guys ever been to the gorge before? No. It's beautiful. There's like rivers and like cliffs and beauty, and I see windsurfers and kiteboarders, and then I saw a hang glider, right? I saw a hang glider. I'm like, Mom, I got so excited. I'm like, that's gonna be me, you know? And she's like, that's gonna be you. She grabbed my hand. I'm 35 years old holding hands with my mom in the Subaru Forester. Full circle. But anyway, we get to the like hang gliding people. I don't know where this going. But there's like Zach and Skylar, they're like the hang gliding guys. They're just doing way better than they should be, you know? Just white dudes with dreadlocks just hanging out, you know?
And like, I know I'm in trouble because like one of them just runs to the back, you know? And the other one, like, he wants to tell me that I'm too fat to hang, but doesn't want to tell me I'm fat. Because that's the thing about being fat is nobody, like, you know it and they know it, but nobody wants to say nothing, you know? And so he doesn't say, he goes, whoa, which is a bad sign right out there. Like, I don't like the shock in your eye. He goes, whoa, man, you might probably, definitely, probably too big to hang glide. And like at this moment too, like I know I'm screwed because they didn't get a scale or nothing. This dude eyeballed me. This guy's got a bachelor's in political science. He's eyeballed me. So like I know I'm screwed, man. But at that moment, like this gets real for a second. Like at that moment, I got so sad. Right? So sad, not for me, but for my mom, right? Because she spent all that time trying to find this like perfect present, and it was so awesome driving it. And now we find out that I'm too fat to handle it, right? And my mom, who's this amazing lady, grew up on a pig farm in Ohio, had 7 brothers, like did all this amazing things, right? And I love her to death, but she doesn't know anything about hang gliding. Like I know I'm screwed. She's like, there's gotta be something we can do. We're just like, no. I got an idea. She goes, why don't we just put 2 hang gliders together? Which is a great idea on the farm in Ohio. So I got so sad in that moment. Because when I get sad, I don't just get sad about one thing. I get sad about that thing and everything that thing reminds me of. And everything I might be sad about in the future. You know what I mean? Sadness isn't a thing that I am, it's a world that I live in. You know? And in that moment, you go, why don't we just put 2 hang gliders together? You know? It took me back to 16. I was gonna bungee jump at the Puyallup Fair. But at 16, I was too fat to bungee jump. And my mom was there, and you know what she said? She goes, why don't we just put 2 bungee cords It's gonna sadness. I know this is gonna sound weird, but last night I was eating basketball and I was eating peanuts, right? And I love peanuts. How many of y'all love peanuts? I love peanuts because they're a snack and an activity. I used to do a lot of meth, and people get mad at me for taking their shit apart. But you give me a peanut, I take it apart, nobody cares. I got this peanut, right? And this was a great peanut. I got a triple bag. You know what I'm talking about? The 3 peanuts, 1 shell, right? I got this great peanut triple, and I find it, you know, and I squeeze it. I find the seam because everybody turns into an engineer when you eat peanuts. You find the seam and you squeeze, and I squeezed it like that. Pew, pew, pew. All 3 peanuts flew in different directions, and I'm just holding the simple shell. That made me sad too. Also, my dad died when I was 12. Not peanut. He was peanut. Well, I told him. I always do this, like, I'll tell the truth about my dead dad. You guys think I can talk about my dead dad? I'm gonna fix this right now. You guys think I can fix this? Yeah. All right, this is for you, Olympia. I'm gonna fix this big dead stuff right now. The power of music. My dad died when I was 12. That was way better. That was his favorite song. Hey, I'm Sam Miller. You guys are great.
All right, that's that. So yeah, that was a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago. I'll be honest, it was funny. I was talking to Nicole before I started this, and like that's the second time in the past month that I've watched myself do stand-up. It's really hard for me to watch myself do that because I really, really miss stand-up. And when it's weird, the kind of the 2 weeks while it was ramping up, I also, another part of my job is I work in high schools with youth that are at high risk. That's like my other job besides stand-up. And one thing I do is I do stand-up comedy workshops for youth that are experiencing homelessness and might have substance use, mental health, addiction issues, stuff like that. I think stand-up's a great way to talk about stuff that's really hard to talk about, you know. But I had a week of vacation, and while we were on vacation, like I was hearing about it becoming more and more severe, especially in Washington State. I go back to the schools I work in, and I'm still doing stand-up at this point, and I hear more about them possibly shutting down schools. And then I started getting messages about shows getting canceled, and it was one day. I remember the first day a show got canceled. I said, "Wow, okay, that makes sense," because that's like it was like up in Seattle, and I knew that they had a lot more cases up there. And then I'm watching the news, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" Like they just shut down 2 school districts, and then that day, Jay Inslee shut down all the schools, and then like this flood of like canceled shows started. There was one show in Oregon I could have done that Saturday, but I canceled that one because I was like, this isn't worth the risk to me and my family. My mom lives downstairs, the mom that I was talking about in that video, and actually the mom who's somehow sitting next to me while I'm doing this right now, which I'm okay with. I love her. You want to say hi real quick, Mom?
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Yeah. She lives downstairs, and we're really close. I'm worried about her health. She's older, as you can see. She also has she has a bad heart because her heart's very old. She's an amazing woman, and I want to make sure that I keep her safe. So I canceled some other shows, and then it became immediately apparent that like stand-up's not going to happen for a while. And that was like the first 2 weeks. I have 2 young kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, so a 3rd grader and a 1st grader. My wife started working from home. I couldn't work because the schools were closed, so I'm dealing with unemployment. I'm teaching my kids school. Stand-up is gone, and my job is gone. And that was that all happened like really quick. And it was really hard. One thing about me is I am in recovery. I've been sober 11 years. I attend like support groups, a fairly well-known support group that I won't say by name. But I have support around me, and a lot of that support comes from other drug addicts and other alcoholics. And so I started leaning into that a lot more than I have in the past. I felt like I did maybe the first year I got sober. I kind of felt like that again, because without realizing it, stand-up had become such an important part of my life. And then I didn't realize how big of a part it was until it just disappeared, you know? And it's strange because a lot of times when stuff goes wrong with stand-up, there's other comedians, and there's actually other comedians, a lot of comedians in recovery. There's a lot of comedians that shove tons of coke up their nose, but there's a lot of comedians in recovery too. And reaching out to them, and it's strange though, because they're going through, it's not like they're not really lifting me up, because they're going through the exact same thing that I'm going through, you know? And so I moved even more towards like my recovery community. And honestly, like I withdrew. I slept a lot, which is, I usually only sleep 5 or 6 hours a night. That's just kind of how I'm built. I don't sleep a lot. It was extremely hard. It was extremely hard. But what happened was, like most things in my life, I started realizing that I have to let it go, and I can't impose my will on the world. I didn't get good at comedy by like trying to control everything around me. The best I do at stand up, in that set that I just showed there, the best way I can do stand up is by being completely present in the moment, you know. And And being completely present in the moment right now can be really, really hard. But 2 weeks, I guess it was more like 2.5 weeks ago. It was like 2 weeks into the thing. There was a day where I feel like I just kind of let it go, and I became okay with taking a break from stand up. And when I did that, I don't know how quite to express this, but what I felt like was the component pieces of me that made me good at stand up are still there, and I will start doing stand up immediately once it's safe for me and my family. Like, I don't really care about what the government says. I'm not really big into the government, but like once I feel that it's safe for me and my family, like I will start doing stand up again. But right now what I'm left with is these component pieces of the things that made me good at stand up, and that's basically the fact that like I'm really funny, and the reason why I'm funny and the reason why a lot of my friends are funny is because we have to be. Like when you deal with mental health and addiction issues, I've been homeless, I've been incarcerated, I've been through a lot of hard stuff. uh, Humor is survival to me. The funniest people I was ever around were other folks that I was in rehab and jail with and stuff like that, you know. And the reason why, I'm not saying like, of course, like my comedian friends are probably like in a measurable way funnier, but when you are funny in arenas where it's really important to be funny, like I feel like if you told the same joke in in a jail versus on a stand-up stage, the same joke, like the joke's funnier in the jail because it has to be, you know. uh Even without incarceration, like being a drug addict and alcoholic means that like a lot of my life at any point could be taken away from me. uh I ran the risk of, you know, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong or whatever, but basically my reality was that at any point, like I could be pulled off the streets by a police officer and put into jail. And having that in my mind changed the way I think, and it changed the way I looked at the world. And going through those situations and being incarcerated like I was, uh it made it that much more important that I'm funny, and that was honed in that arena. And it worked great for stand up, but stand up's gone right now. And but what's dope is that what I'm doing now, when I finally let it go, uh I was able to actually start doing, I can't really call it stand up, but I've done some stuff with my mom and my wife, who I live with, and they watch me perform. What I realized immediately is those jokes that I did in that video is like that stuff is some of like my best material, and I'll still do it, and I'll still do it again. Uh, but it doesn't really work online for me. Kind of like it seems extra forced. So what I realized is that I needed to write new material, and I needed to, and it's hard to write big long jokes, like those big long jokes that I just told, like that seem like a story. A lot of those started out as like one line, like the whole idea about being too fat to hang glide, like that was the only idea I had. And then it becomes like this big long thing. And the way it does that is every time I perform, I'll add a thing. And if that thing works, I'll do it next time I perform. If it doesn't work, I won't do it again. You know what I mean? And so then I'm doing it this way, and then I say a different thing, and then that gets added or taken away. So, but what I realized is that that process doesn't work online because I can't get those reactions. So I tried to write some longer jokes. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. I felt weird about most of it. And so then I decided that I'm just going to write a whole bunch of small jokes. And that's what I've been doing. So last week on Saturday, I did a live stream where I did 100 jokes, like 100 short jokes. And it went really well. And we wound up raising like $1,200 for Interfaith Work. So that made me really happy. And now what I've decided to do is just try to do that every week. And I think right now, as I stand, I'm on joke 56. So I got some work to do tonight and tomorrow. And out of the 100 jokes, like 8 or 9 of them are pretty good. 60 of them are okay, and the rest are trash, but they're kind of funny too. I don't mind writing trash jokes sometimes, and I think writing trash jokes makes the other ones look better. But that's where I'm at right now. Like, I'm okay. Financially, we're doing fine. Like, I'm not worried about that stuff. It's weird. I've had people reach out to me about like how they're like, "Hey, man, you should put your Venmo out there and stuff like that and try to get paid to do this right now." But it's weird because I kind of feel like it's not that I'm just not a big fan of capitalism. I'm just gonna put it out there. Like, it's a weird idea where I have enough. Like, I'm doing fine. I don't need any extra money right now telling jokes, but I know that there's a lot of folks that are really struggling right now, and it makes me feel weird to take in more resources than I need right now. On the backside of this, I'm gonna try to get rich doing comedy, but right now it feels weird to try to do that. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now, and I'd love to answer. I love answering questions about comedy. If anybody has any questions, even like personal stuff, writing stuff, anything, like I'm down to answer it. If you want to ask my mom a question, she's still sitting here, so you can ask my mom a question if you want to.
I have a question.
Okay.
So when you say like that it's a lot easier to stand up in front of a bunch of people and talk about very traumatic things, I find that really odd. And I'm wondering how that happened with you. You know, I don't understand that personally. I don't understand anyone who wants to stand up in front of an audience of any kind. That would scare the heck out of me. And I completely applaud the fact that you do it, and the fact that you've turned these personal learning experiences into a complete triumph. Congratulations. And I'll let you answer now.
Hey, that's a really cool question. I would say like so I'm an extrovert, and I've kind of realized that over time that and what's weird is that when I think about being an extrovert, it's not just that I like to be around a lot of people. The interactions I have with people make me feel like I know myself better, and stand up is like this extreme example of that, right? So the first time I did stand up, people had been telling me to do stand up for a while because I would do some like storytelling things, and also in the recovery groups that I'm a part of, people wanted to hear what I had to say. And sometimes people would laugh at me for things, just the way that I talk, like the style in which I communicate, people think is funny for some reason, and that's okay. I don't care. But they would be like, "Hey, you should do stand up." And I was like, "No, I don't want to do stand up. It's weird. It seems kind of gross." And then literally randomly one day in June, about 6 years ago now, I was walking down the street and I saw a stand-up comedy open mic. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to give it a shot." And it's funny, a guy who became a pretty good friend of mine was hosting it, a guy named Devin For Real. And he actually just put me up immediately. I didn't have to wait or nothing. I think he wanted to see what I could do. And I told a story about I'm not going to talk about it right now, but I told kind of like, not a gross story, but a weird story. It was kind of gross. And I got a good reaction, and then it just snapped. And I'll tell you what, this is crazy. I love telling this story because my first thought when I walked off stage after doing stand-up, my first thought was, this could end my marriage. Like, that was my literal first thought, because like I'm an addict, like through and through, and like that dopamine boost I got from getting those laughs was insane to me. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe like this isn't drugs. Like, this is amazing. Like, but I was thinking, I was like, man, like, and then I just couldn't wait to do it again. You know, I just couldn't wait to do it again. I think I answered your question and some other ones nobody asked. So
You did, and I want to ask Mom what it was like bringing you up.
oh, what it was like bringing me up.
Bringing you up. Oh my God. It was, I guess I would say, light and dark. The Sam you see now, I would see half the time the other half of the time when he was into his addiction through his teens and early 20s, we had no relationship. I was just a place for him to come, sleep, kind of eat some food, and then he'd be gone. For me personally, it was a constant anxiety and worry about where he was, who he was with. Would I get a call from the hospital or the jail? It was either one or the other. And it was very difficult. But as you can see, it's totally different now. And I'm grateful every day to be, to have my son back. And he is funny. He's very funny. And we get along very well as a family, especially sharing space.
We both
So
kind
that's
of
been-
we both have our things. Like I'm funny and she's old. So we both have something to do.
Yes, we both have something to do.
No, it's cool. It is, and like she said, like I have my mom back too. It's the recovery deal is such a big part of my life because it has to be. It's like drugs and alcohol were such a big part of my life that it couldn't be any different. You know what I mean? Like and I'm one of those folks too. Like I'm grateful that I have alcoholism, and I'm grateful that I'm a drug addict because I have tools that work for me, and I'm really grateful for that. A lot of my friends, and I have a lot of friends that are still using, and I love them too. It's really hard. It's really brutal, especially when stuff like this is going on. A lot of my friends are homeless. A lot of my friends are incarcerated, and a lot of my friends are dead. And that's just kind of the way it goes. The methamphetamine epidemic in this part of Washington in the early 2000s isn't like a joke or a statistic to me. It's like something that I experienced and my mom experienced too. It's just how it is. And now with the heroin epidemic, a lot of folks that I used to use drugs with, and they were using different drugs in the early 2000s, moved over to heroin, and it's really hard. It's really hard. It's been hard.
I have a question. Hey, Sam, like what do you think we need to do as like a comedy community? What I see is a lot of the small venues that were the hosts of the open mics and the ways in which we practice our craft have kind of ceased to exist. A lot of them are either already out of business or looking at going out of business. The biggest draw to me, like in the comedy community, was just that, the sense of community, the sense of being around other creative people, being around other people who were excited for what you were doing and inspired you to try to do better and do more and improve. And I think that's the saddest part for me, isn't really just not being able to do stand-up. It's not seeing the people. It's wondering when we're going to see them again.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do a couple of the online shows, and I think that's really the part for me that's still missing. So like, I don't know. I was just kind of curious what you thought as far as what should be the plan going forward.
So first off, I want to say, everybody, if they don't know, that's my friend BJ Smith. He's a up and coming comedian here in Olympia, and actually is doing pretty well. I think you're pretty funny, BJ. If you didn't know that, you're okay. Anyway, I think the ticket is right now is, for me anyway, is that acceptance, and the acceptance being that, like, we don't know which way it's going to go either way. I mean, I think a lot of these venues are hurting. Some of them have shut down, but however long the pandemic goes, and however long we have to maintain like social distancing and whatever that looks like, is just being able to adapt. And I imagine when this is over, new venues existing where we can grow with places. A lot of the venues that I work with are places that I have relationships with outside of comedy. Lavoyer is a place in downtown Olympia where I started a show called Vomity about 5 years ago. And it's moved to different hands, and right now it's not happening. And it was a weekly open mic. And me and the owner of Lavoyer, like, our kids had play dates, and we grew that together. And that's the thing, is that stand-up comedy has gone through phases where it's gotten its ass kicked before. And this country's gone through phases where it's gotten its ass kicked before too. This world's getting its ass kicked right now. But the thing is that on the flip side of it, like, not only is, like, I feel like growth and, like, recovery is, like, inherent, like, because it has to be, it has to be. Because the thing is that as much as I have an urge to do stand-up and a need and a want to do stand-up comedy in front of people, there's people that feel the same way about, like, cooking food for people, like, we can't stop, like, human nature, like, it's people are going to find ways to survive and find ways to thrive. That's what I think. I just don't have a timeline for that. And I don't think, and anybody who tells you they do, they don't know, nobody knows what the hell is going to happen, so. Everything's going to be okay. Is that what you want to hear?
Basically, it sounds better.
Yeah, thanks, yeah.
All right, well, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for hanging out. Stephanie says in the comments, thanks, Sam, exclamation point.
Oh, you're welcome, Stephanie.
And then just, does anyone have any last thoughts before we wrap up, including you, Sam?
Sam, I just want to thank you. I haven't had a chance to be around stand-up, and it's interesting to see how different artists find their creative muse. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I'd like to say on the back side of this, man, like, if you like live music and you know the difference between, like, listening to music and attending live music, if you like humor, and if you it's amazing how many people have never gone to live stand-up comedy, and it's a great date. It can be a really special thing, especially if you sit in the front row and I start talking about your haircut or something like that. It's a lot of fun.
I did a good job on his hair.
No, it looks great. I'm not talking about his haircut. I don't want no problems.
No, I appreciate it. I went to stand-up comedy once, and I've never laughed so hard in my life. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This has been a fun and different week for the Something. So please tell your friends, and we'll see you again. Oh, Becky Old says in the comments, thanks, Sam. Sorry, I was feeling too ugly to show my haircut today. Ha ha. Never, Becky.
I'm ugly every day. It's great. Nobody expects nothing from me. It's awesome. I haven't showered in a week. I don't know. Nobody can smell me.
All right. Well, we will see some of you again on Tuesday. We're going to be we're going to be hearing from a ceramic artist. So, but let's hear it for Sam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. Good job.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.